What is up, you guys? It's your boy Captain Jack. I got my buddy Scott, and we're gonna do some offshore diving off the jet ski. I'm gonna be rocking the GoPro on my head, so everything I see underwater, you'll see as well. Before we get into today, I'm gonna give you a quick run through of something that happened the other day. And you see this gun right here? I almost had to kiss it goodbye. So I'm gonna roll on the footage and I'll do some voiceovers and talk you through this absolute disaster of a dive. We are sending it off for an afternoon mission. I got my boy Jay. Jay, he's an avid subscriber. We've done a shore dive together, and we hit it pretty hard in the past. It's gonna be tight quarters. We're gonna go nuts to butt out there. Jay's gonna be backing it up. Dude, I swear to God, you literally just sit in a pool of sweat. Every time I show up to the ramp or wherever I meet this guy, he's all decked out in his, what is that, 2 mil? 3 mil wetsuit, and it's freaking hot summer weather. He's insane. We got the fish bag, got my Rob Allen. We are rocking some NATO attached to the jet ski, so if there's a little bit of wind, we can help ourselves pull around. Got the cooler loaded with some block ice, and fingers crossed, Jay wanted to get on some big fish. He wanted to get on some big fish, so we're going to one place. We're going to the Deep Rex. Dude, if you don't follow Jay, you'll probably see some of this stuff on his Instagram. He posts a lot on his stories. I tell him to step up his game, dude. You gotta step up your game. Post more reels, or like, I don't know. I try to help him, but you know, you can only help him so much. But we're gonna send it offshore, and I'll see you guys out there on the water. Welcome underwater, everyone, and go ahead and hold your breath with me on this dive. It is gonna be a freaking wild one, and I will talk you over what's going on after the fact. So right now, go ahead and enjoy this one and see the kind of trouble I get into. Jay, yo, come on, yo, yo, yo. My gun's gone. My gun is gone. Here, shut it off. Kill it. Get my other some NATO out. Just hang near me. Nah, the shaft's gone, or the shaft's there, but I just gotta cut both. I'm gonna cut it. All right, you guys, that was insane. I just did a little wellness check of the ocean, and we're gonna reset and drop right on top of some wreckage, and hopefully there's no current, but hopefully the fish are around. He said we got good viz too, so nothing to do except get after it. Do me a favor, like, subscribe, and I'll see you down below. All right, everybody, welcome to the voiceovers. And the reason I didn't walk you through that last one is because I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what happens. And most of you kind of drew your assumptions of what went down beforehand. But if you see this spot right now, it looks way different when you have clear visibility. But this is the exact same spot I was diving on the previous mission. Now, it's something pretty funny. You'll actually see the area where I had lost my spear gun, and what happened was that fish swam towards the wreck, and it looked like a giant Goliath grouper grabbed him and sucked him into the structure and ripped him off the string, and the line was all wrapped up inside of the wreck, and there was no way for me to get it out, especially on that day, because it was just such horrible conditions. But you can see how the conditions can change in an instant. But this was the exactly where I had lost my spear gun previously. Now I went in, I kind of looked back there, and I found the string all wrapped up on that piling right there, and I didn't have the bottom time to go down there and cut it off. But yeah, you can see exactly where that fish went and how different the place looks after the fact. But now on this dive, when I went down there to kind of scope out the area, nice dog snapper came in. I took a long shot and it kind of jolted right at the last second, and I swung and a missed. But this was literally the first dive of the day, first dive amongst a lot of really good ones. And right there I spotted some nice cuberas off in the distance coming in, and I looked up, told Scott, and he's about to make a drop. I missed the dog, but there's cubera right here. They just came in, 2 of them. Yeah. We gotta use the thing. So I was pretty bummed about that first drop, having an opportunity at that decent sized dog snapper. But on this dive, I get a little bit of redemption. And when I'm making this drop, I'm not, well, actually there's another diver that dropped in a little up current, solo diving in his boat, and just had a big float line out. He was kind of coming up on us, so I wanted to make sure I made a drop on those cuberas to see if I can maybe land a shot on one. So I land kind of in these rocks, and when I saw them initially, they were off in the sand, kind of came into the rocks, so I was hoping they would do the exact same thing. I land, and I'm looking out off in the distance to the right, and that's where they originally were. And I mean, cubera are tricky ones, especially in the area we're at. So to get an opportunity on one would be tough, and then to get a shot would be even tougher. So looking off in the distance, didn't see any cuberas, but those dog snapper came back to some rock, and I just start crawling across these rocks, checking out for those cuberas, not seeing them there. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take a shot at one of these dogs. Towards the end of my dive, and I just take a long shot. You can see how long this shot is. and it took up almost all of my double wraps on my gun. And that goes to show this Rob Allen Timberline roller is such a absolute weapon. And you can see why I was so upset when I had almost lost it on that other dive, because it's just such a great gun. It's so versatile, and you can see this guy with his float line just kind of rolling up on us, and no reason to get mad, just kind of brushing it off.
What's up? I saw him on my way down, and I landed, and then I saw him off in the distance, and I like went over the edge, and I was like, oh, there they are. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, interesting fella though. Yeah.
Now you can really see the difference of these fish, compared to muttons and mangroves. They have that really big teardrop right under their eye, and they're kind of like an orange color with some white on the belly. And Scott actually makes a drop and gets himself one as well on a little bit of a deeper wreck. But yes, similar size, really good eating fish, and this is perfect. And we know we secured dinner. Anything else would be a bonus.
Nice. Were there more?
There's two together.
Here, I'll make a drop.
Then we move to a different area. It's a little bit deeper, and we're in a wreck area with a big wreck, and I made a couple drops on the wreck. Didn't really see a whole lot, but just because you're past the wreck doesn't mean that the dive is over. I usually like diving a little bit before the wreck, on the wreck, and then after the wreck, and this is the aftermath. And you'll see how much life is even around, even if you're not on the actual main structure. And luckily, there was a little kind of crack in the rock bottom after the wreck that I was able to find some fish on. So I head down to the bottom. It's super deep. I believe it's like around 90. There's a Goliath grouper at the bottom, so I know if I did shoot a fish, I need to make sure I'm very wise on my shot placement, because I need to either stone the fish or shoot it so I can horse it up to myself and get a hold of it before the grouper does. So I'm hoping that a mutton comes up, maybe a dog snapper, a mangrove, something like that. And I'm just hovering above. I think I'm in like 90 something feet, which is pretty crazy. It was probably 100 to the sand. And a mutton comes in, and he's borderline. He's got like a hook in his mouth with some leader hanging out of it. So he's a decent sized fish, but nothing crazy. And we already had dinner, so I wasn't gonna really take the risk of shooting a borderline legal fish, because we already have dinner. And like I said, he's probably legal, but I just decided to opt out. But you can see all that life, those spadefish, there's some grunts, and the Goliath. That's all a good sign that there's life around, but nothing shootable. But we definitely get into some fish later on and come into some more Goliath action. I wanted to show you guys a quick little snippet of what we're rocking with. Scott's on a dive, and I have the Subnado attached to a float line that's attached to the flashers, and that whole float line setup is attached to the jet ski. So if I need to bring the ski somewhere, I don't have to sit there and exert my energy. I use the Subnado, and it tows the flashers and the jet ski around. And it's really good to use, especially when there's current and you have another diver down, because usually the current on the top surface is different than the current down at the bottom. Or if somebody goes down to the bottom and sits there, you drift past, and the Subnado really helps, and the battery lasts like all day. So it really helps to keep up with your divers, to fight current without overexerting yourself and exhausting yourself. And that's why we're able to do this diving off the jet ski all day long. But now I've made a dive. We were, again, near structure, but I made a blind drop kind of into the sand. I'm at 81 feet right here, and behind me was the wreck. And again, I knew I wasn't going to be able to hit the wreck, so I just decided I'm just going to shoot straight to the bottom. And when I was down there, threw up some sand. There was some decent muttons coming in. I take a long shot on this guy, and it was kind of like a Hail Mary, just hoping I'd stick him. And there'd be no structure for him to get caught on, so I'd just be able to dump the drag and let him tire out and just hoist him up with this shaft in him. But this guy would not come in. I play him safe. I'm crawling towards him a little bit, kicking up sand, doing some grunting. really hoping that he would just come in. He starts going head on, but then turns away, and I'm like, this is my opportunity. Take a super long shot. Shaft just like lays down in the sand next to him. Cut my losses, swim up, and when I'm swimming up, I'm making sure I try to find Scott, and I do. He's kind of off in the distance, but my goal is to find him, so I swim his direction, and I breach the surface facing him so I can yell if I need help or anything like that.
Big mines. Shot and nah, too far. This is the killer drift, boy. Let's get him.
Here goes another wild dive, making a blind drop again in the sand. And this whole time we were trying to really get the drift right on the structure, and we just could not figure it out. So we were just making blind drops in the sand, kind of off the structure, and we were still seeing plenty of fish, as you'll see on this dive. Start heading towards the sand, and before I even get to the sand, I see a huge school of yellow jacks, and these things are freaking moving. And after I shoot, you'll see why. I'll explain. I was a little bummed after I shot because in the distance there was something massive, but you see the school out in the corner of my eye. I'm looking around for a mutton. If I could choose an AJ or a yellow jack or a mutton, I would definitely choose a mutton, but I don't spot any around at the moment. So the yellow jacks are kind of piquing my interest. I do a little grunting to try to call them in my direction, and they come my direction, but they do not stop. So I aim for like a big chunk of the school, let it rip, and came up empty-handed. But right when I did that stuff off in the distance were some monster mutton snappers. I mean, these would have been personal best in my area at the size of these things. So I do get another look at these fish, but again, it's another drop, and we have to just be patient on this one. The one thing we talked about, which we didn't get on camera, was the fact that we are not taking stupid shots on these really big mutton. We don't want to push them. We don't want them to get uneasy. So I told Scott, I said, hey, I'm only going to make a really good shot because I don't want to senselessly wound one of these really big muttons. And we kind of got somewhat close, but just not close enough on these big boys. But this was the structure we were trying to dive, and everything in the front of the structure, there were just huge Goliaths just facing up current looking for food. And so the only thing we really saw was kind of off the back of the structure. So now on this dive, I'm really descending slow. I'm not going straight to the bottom because I want to kind of drift past the wreck into the sand, and that's exactly what I'm doing. I spot the mutton. You see my head just kind of stop. I spotted a mutton off in the distance. I wasn't sure if it was the biggest one or the big one, but I find out here soon. Just cruise all the way down to the bottom, almost like I'm just a floating piece of debris in the current. And that's what I'm hoping. One of these muttons come in and gets a little curious, but they were huge. And I don't know if you could see them, but they're kind of off in the distance. Yeah, right there. You can even see the shadow it casts. I'm closing the gap. I didn't charge it because, again, we said, hey, we're not going to pressure them too hard. They were in the area. They're hanging around. And I just kind of let that guy go off in the distance. Maybe if I would have charged hard, I could have gotten a shot. But, again, I think we saw maybe one more time after this, but we kind of sort of cut our losses because they just were not giving us the shot we wanted.
Would have been a Hail Mary.
This is the dive when all heck breaks loose. Now we've dialed it into where we're hitting this wreck really well. Scott saw a big cubera go into the wreck, and he said it was either a really big cubera or a monster mangrove. And he said, you know, if I go down to the sand and kind of look into the wreckage from the side, I might be able to get a shot on either one of these really big mangroves or a cubera that's inside. So that's what I do on this drop. And I'm not dropping straight on the structure. I kind of want to go to the edge and then work my way towards the structure. But I mean, it is a deep dive. It's around like 80 feet, 81 feet, all the way to the sand. And I'm trying to, you know, it's a little stressful to try to make it all the way to the bottom and get a shot on a fish. But you can see those Goliaths just waiting for an opportunity. And that big school of yellowjack comes in, and I wanted redemption. So I was like, finally, they're going to give me a shot. Take a rip. Really good shot, strung the fish, and I tried to grab the brakes and hit the brakes and keep him out of the wreck. But the one piling that this stupid wreck had, of course, the fish wrapped up on, and I saw the Goliath eat it. I knew it 100%. I didn't want the current to drag me and to rip all my line out, so I just pulled my knife, cut the line, and I was just going to do a little extraction dive after this. And you'll wait for that dive. It's a beautiful, beautiful dive. You'll see all the Goliaths that are all fired up because of the situation that just happened. But yeah, that was not my dive. Had to act quick, and don't ever question cutting your line. Not a big deal. You can always retrieve your shaft later.
Lost the shaft. Yeah.
Now when I rock the subnados, I always bring two of them. I have one on the jet ski, and then I also have the one that's attaches to my arm. And the first dive at the beginning of this video was a prime example why I do that. And then here's another reason, because fighting the current, getting down, I don't exert hardly any energy when I'm using this thing, and I'm just sitting there just coasting around with effortlessly without kicking. But yeah, I think that was the Goliath that just swallowed my yellowjack, and it's super frustrating. Luckily this shaft wasn't bent, but while I'm down there, I just quickly analyze all this situation, everything that's going on. Want to just basically gather up all the line, ball it up. I don't want to make a bunch of loops or anything like that, so I ball it up as tight as I can. I'll sort it all out whenever I get to the surface, and then the main end of it is just trailing out behind me. Swim up to the surface. Scott made a drop as well, and so we just head up together, go to the ski. Oh, and you'll see this. This is funny. He actually let go of the ski, and the wind kind of took it pretty far. So I just, thank God I have the subnado. I just rip across the surface, have him grab my shoulder, and we just effortlessly head over to the ski.
Hey, grab on.
Oh shit.
Grab our shoulder.
We still have some gas left in the tank, so we decided to hit one more zone, and it is a super deep zone. It's around 110 feet deep, and there's a bunch of drop-offs, a bunch of ledges that could hold a lot of fish. It's going to be not a ton of fish, but it's going to be really big ones, and it's really hard diving. We're both up for it. We were, after that yellowjack situation, we both were like, screw it, let's get one last good fish to end the day. So we go to this area. We miss the drop, of course, just like one of those days. I'm not using the subnado, just go back to regular diving. I see some structure off in the distance, and I'm like, shoot, I'm already down here, so I'm just gonna make it all the way to the bottom. And you'll see what the depth is here in a minute. And I'm just spinning as I'm going down, just hoping that a fish would come in off that structure to me, instead of me exerting the energy and heading over there. And then I'm at 107 feet on this drop, but even though it's just blank sand, there's a high chance that a fish will, you know, it's like a desert out here, so if they see something free fall and they think it's a food opportunity and they just start booking it in. I was really hoping that would be the case here. There was some kind of angelfish and some grunts cruising around, but nothing, no muttons, no cobia, no pelagics of any sort. Kind of shocked. We're kind of ending the day, or it's not ending the day, but we're kind of nearing the end of the day. So I had to get one more solid drop on the structure, because usually when the current's ripping like this, the fish are around. So if we hit the structure well, especially in this deep area, there's a high chance we'll be able to pull in a mutton or some kind of pelagic off the main structure. But gotta head to the surface, do another breathe up, make another pass, and last dive of the day coming up quick.
Went to the bottom, nothing.
Doing this kind of blind diving is really tough, honestly. It's especially because you can't see the bottom. You're just basing it off of what you think the current is doing, where you're positioned on GPS. And here's the drop where I'm really on the lookout to find the structure, and I do find it, but I find something before that's very enticing. Again, I'm doing the whole spinning thing. As I'm going down, I'm kind of spinning in circles, hoping to see something in the distance come in on me. But I kind of get fixated on the bottom up ahead of me, and the structure is kind of off in a different direction. But as I'm looking at the bottom, I'm like, okay, I think I see some little muttons down there. But I don't know what it was that gave me the feeling, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to turn around. And I think right now I'm like, there's the structure, that big dark structure, and as I turn towards it, a huge mutton, looks like he came into me and then just started going back down to the bottom. I do a little grunting, and I'm just coasting. I'm not kicking hard towards him, just coasting towards him, aim mid-body, because I know how big this fish was, and I just let him spin a little bit. I wasn't going to sit there and horse him and rip him out, like rip the shaft out. And I don't see any sharks, I don't see any Goliaths, so I'm just slowly easing him up to the surface, just keeping my head on a swivel. And again, I'm not positive on the shot. I'm not sure if it went all the way through or if the barb would disengage. So this is a very good fish, kind of a lethal shot. So I'm really hoping that I can just kind of hoist him up to the surface without having any predator problems. But yeah, I'm stoked. Once I get this thing in my hands, I realize how big he actually is. And I am amped up to finish the day with such a quality fish. And then stay tuned for the epic cookout right after this. You're not going to want to miss it.
Woo! Woo! Mutton. Big mutton. Yes, dude! Woo!
All right, long day of diving. We got it done. Let's see what we got in the box. Look at this little smorgasbord. We got some watermelon. Look at the size of that mutton. Takes up the whole cooler. We got those 2 nice quality dogs underneath, and they made us work today. I mean, there were fish everywhere, but we suck. Honestly, we suck. Freaking, I know, we need to figure out how to dive better and shoot better, because dude, those freaking yellow jacks. Scott got had by the yellow jacks, and I, obviously you saw, got had by the yellow jacks. But we're gonna head in. I'm gonna drop this dude off at the beach. I'm gonna see you guys back at my place, and we are gonna cook up one of these fish in one form or another. So let's go. Welcome to the kitchen. We're at my house, and I went ahead and filleted that mutton, and now we're gonna cook it up. I already ate one half of it, but this is gonna be a full meal in itself. It's something I've cooked in the past, but I've added a little twist to it. So I go ahead, I diced up, this was a whole side of the fish, and I diced it up into these little nuggets. I have a fresh Meyer lemon from the tree outside, and then I have some fresh garlic, and I chopped it nice and fine. I'm gonna put all of these ingredients in a bowl with a little bit of olive oil, and I'm just gonna let it marinate for about a half hour before I do the final cooking stage. So I have everything prepped. It's been like 15 minutes since that stuff was in the fridge, and I'm already ready for it to go. So I have these little bowls. We got all-purpose rice flour. I beat 2 eggs, and then we have some gluten-free breadcrumbs, this stuff. And I'm going to dip each individual one inside of each, just coat it in flour, coat it in eggs, coat it in the breadcrumbs, and I'm gonna lay it in this cast iron skillet, and I'm using some coconut oil. So it's gonna be a really tropical kind of flavor, mixed with the garlic, mixed with the lemon, and I'm excited to get into it, so let's see how this process goes down. All right, we're finishing up the last batch, and I let this stuff cool a little bit. I'm gonna try one of the first pieces done. It looks perfectly crispy, like a chicken nugget. It's taste test time though. Oh, hot. So crunchy and so good, look at that. Dang. So I'll probably find some kind of sauce. I'll probably use that cilantro lime if you haven't seen it in the last video. That sauce was absolutely money and it'll go perfect with this. So we're gonna finish up cooking. I'm gonna dive into eating this. You guys, if you enjoyed this one, give it that thumbs up. If you're new, consider subscribing. Comment down below on any thoughts you have on the video. If you've watched it all the way to this point, I appreciate you tuning in, and I'll see you guys next week for another adventure. Later.